Welcome to the Swine Health Blackbelt Podcast, the latest swine health research digested for you. My name is Dr. Clayton Johnson, and I'm your host for today's episode. Joining me for the episode today is Dr. Jessica Santos Streauslin. Dr. Streauslin is a veterinary and Ph.D. student with Iowa State University. Jessica, welcome to the Worldwide Podcast Studios. Please give the audience an introduction.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm from Brazil. I graduated in vet school at the Federal University of Paraná, and I started my PhD here at Iowa State in 2018. And since then, I've been working with Streptococcus suis affecting swine.
Well, you said you've been working with Strep suis, Jessica, certainly a pathogen that I'm sure much of our audience is very familiar with. You know, there's the classic Strep suis of the CNS disease, the paddling pigs, all the things that go along with it, sometimes even some swollen joints and those sorts of things. But Strep suis is not a straightforward disease from a diagnostic standpoint. Where you culture the Strep suis from is very important, and what kind of pig you culture the Strep suis from is very important, because all pigs are infected, but not all disease. Do you want to talk a little bit just in terms of the basic diagnostics about Strep suis? What are you looking for to identify a Strep suis that's a problem for a pig producer?
So when a pig producer is having problems with Strep suis and you're seeing those sudden death, padding plagues, you want to sample the best of your ability to have a clean sample for isolation of the Strep suis, especially from the brain. I think here we're starting to see a lot that is easier from a farm. If you could collect CSF, is kind of easily to do. You have minimal training and you can have a clean sample from there. But also if you can do like submit the brain for histologic evaluation at the diagnostic lab, we have to confirm there's a lesion, a bacterial lesion on the meninges especially. And if the isolation of Strep suis is a very good isolation. So when I say isolation is the growth of the Strep suis in the plate is pure, so you don't have contamination. And you have like a moderate to high amount of Strep suis, and you show that is a stronger evidence that the isolate is causing disease on a farm. Sometimes you want to sample different pigs, not just one, in case you're having problems with more than one kind of strain. And that happens sometimes, especially when you're commingling from different nurseries, and sometimes you're having problems with PRRS. So you might rise some serotypes that are usually not a big problem. But then when you have another virus going on that is immunosuppressing, you can see this less virulent serotypes causing disease. And then from there, you can pick if you need to update your autogenous vaccine or not. A big thing to do that, we always say you should do a whole genome sequencing on the isolate, especially when you need to affirm that you need to update your autogenous vaccine. You're going to do that better with a whole genome sequencing.
What are the options to compare diagnostically the strep from my new case, so the strep isolate I got from my brand new case, to maybe an older strep isolate from a few years ago from the same farm, same source, that I have in a vaccine today? How do I know if my new isolate is the same or different than my old isolate?
Well, you can always start with doing serotyping. Some labs have different options. You can do a agglutination test or the serotyping PCR. Both of them you can do, and you see if it's a different serotype. Of course, is a different strain, but is it still the same serotype and you think your autogenous is not very good, it's not being very effective, you might want to do whole genome sequencing for comparison, because sometimes you have a different sequence type, you have maybe there's some kind of mutation there, but that's something that you can do, whole genome sequencing.
What about, Jessica, looking at the virulent sequences that you get over time at the diagnostic lab and comparing them to the other streps that we always culture. There's always a strep that'll come out of the lung. I feel like every time I culture the lung, I'll get a strep out of there. But typically that strep is not associated with any signs of disease. You mentioned the histopath before. So the histopath report will tell me the lungs look great, no clinical signs with the lungs. So I know that strep is a commensal strep, right? Probably ending up in the respiratory system from the tonsil. When we compare those commensal streps, or those non-pathogenic ones, to the pathogenic ones, can we learn something from that?
Yes. Usually when you have a commensal, sometimes they might be harder to serotype. So sometimes they lose the capsule. Sometimes it's not a serotype that it is known. Maybe it's a new serotype or something. But especially when you do whole genome sequencing, you can see some differences. So usually the genome is shorter. You're going to see more genes that give antibiotic resistance than virulent ones. And they're going to show less virulence-associated genes. So then you can see clearly when you serotype a lot of commensals in virulent ones, you can see this pattern. So they might not be related to disease when you see that pattern.
Very good. You brought up the virulence factors. With doing whole genome sequencing, are we learning anything about new virulence factors? Portions of the genome that previously hadn't been thought of as virulence factors. Are we identifying some new ones of those, or it's basically the same? MRP and SLY, all the classic ones that we were taught in vet school.
I think Strep suis, since it's so diverse, we're always going to be finding new things. The more you look, the more you find. I've been seeing other researchers presenting new capsule proteins that can be responsible for virulence. So you're always going to be finding new virulence-associated genes with Strep suis. The more you look, more you find. The thing is how important it is, and how present it is in all serotypes. And if you can use that to produce a commercial vaccine, for example. So I think that's what the biggest on research is now. Something that you can see it is common on all this virulent Strep suis that is common causing disease in the United States. So you can develop a commercial vaccine.
That would be outstanding. And I assume that's part of your research is this tool can be used for tactical decisions, right? You can use the whole genome sequence to decide which strain do I put in my vaccine, but you can also hopefully over time and with big data sets use it to pull out very important antigenic parts of the genome that need to be in that commercial vaccine. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you'll have that commercial vaccine ready for us first of next year, right, Jessica?
Well, that will be a dream, right?
Yeah. First of a year. How about that? We'll say that. First of a year. Maybe not next year, but eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, eventually.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Jessica, for coming on and sharing your expertise about Strep suis. It's a problematic area for producers and veterinarians alike. It's an area where we need better tools, particularly on the prevention side, right? Mm-hmm. It would help a lot with being good stewards of our antibiotics that we use if we could come up with some more proactive ways to manage that pathogen. And I really appreciate all the work you're doing there, both to help producers make decisions on autogenous vaccines today, and hopefully to help companies commercialize a vaccine platform that can be effective across more broad populations of pigs. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I want to thank our audience as well for listening to the Swine Health Blackbelt Podcast. If you're listening and you have not visited our website, please go check it out, swinehealthblackbelt.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that not only do you not miss the update when Jessica comes back on to celebrate her vaccine invention and patent, but also when you hear all of our good episodes. Thank you very much, Jessica, for joining us. For Dr. Jessica Santos Streauslin, I'm Dr. Clayton Johnson. We'll see you next week. Hey, everyone. We're always searching for the latest and greatest research to share each week. If you have a swine health related research trial and would like to come on the show to talk about it with me and share it with our audience, feel free to send an email to healthblackbelt@swineit.com, and we would love to take a look at your research.